The race for New York Attorney General, it's one that features several names familiar to most New Yorkers. According to a recent Quinnipiac poll, Democrat Andrew Cuomo, he leads his Republican rival, former Westchester DA Jeanine Pirro, 51 to 31%. Former federal housing secretary also leads rival Mark Green, fellow Democrat, 45 to 27% in that same poll. Voters, they also favor Green over Pirro, 46 to 32%. Now, there are other Democrats who want to be AG, but according to Mickey Carroll at Quinnipiac, he says, quote, Charlie King and Sean Maloney simply don't register. No doubt that will change if they succeed in getting petition signatures. Now, the Democrats hoping to get ballot began their drives just a month ago. For openly gay candidate Sean Patrick Maloney, June, it was particularly significant. It was Pride Month, and Maloney seized the opportunity to get his word out to gay and lesbian voters by appearing in numerous parades and campaigning at other related events. And here to give us a progress report on the campaign, Democrat Sean Patrick Maloney, and he joins us out of our Manhattan studio. Sean, appreciate the time.
Good to be with you.
You too. Last time we talked, you talked about the run to get these petition signatures. How goes it?
Well, look, I've been saying for 2 months that we were going to get on this ballot under the rules, showing the proper respect for the party leadership and the party rules. And I'm happy to report that we are rock solid on that. We are well above the number we're going to need to be on this ballot. And there's no doubt in my mind that we'll be on the ballot on September 12th.
Give me the scenario where you make up the ground that the polls show that you're trailing both Mr. and also Mr. Green. A lot of people said that it's getting pretty nasty between the two. Is that where you see the opening come in? We spoke to also Charlie King recently, and he said that the more they learn of Green and Cuomo, they may get sick of the people at the top of at least the polls as we speak.
Well, I'm not running in this race, hoping anybody's, sick of anybody else. I think what I'm doing in this race is talking about how this office can affect the lives of ordinary New Yorkers. And I think if we all remember that at the end of the day, this campaign is not about Andrew Cuomo or Mark Green or Sean Maloney or anybody else. It's about the people of New York, and it's about their families and what this office can do to make their lives better.
Now, one of the other issues you talked about was equality for all, and we're going to hear shortly from the New York Court of Appeals where they come down on the issue of gay marriage in New York State and its legality. Obviously, I know the decision you want them to come down with. What's your expectation, having heard the issues that have been put before them? What do you think they're going to come back with?
Honestly, Richard, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to decide. I think that the one thing I guess I should say about that, and I think anybody running for this office should probably be judicious in what they say, given that the Court of Appeals is going to opine on the constitutional issue involved. But let me just say, I hope all people listening understand that this is not an issue about, gays and lesbians or transgendered people. This is an issue that affects all New Yorkers. Just as Rosa Parks wasn't about just African Americans, this is a fundamental question of whether we believe in the founding promise of America, whether we believe this country is a place where under the law, all people are treated equally. If we're talking about what goes on in people's churches and in their own hearts and their own religious faith, well, that's everybody's individual decision to make, and the government shouldn't get involved in people's religion. But if we're talking about what happens when you go down to City Hall and whether everybody is treated equally, this goes to the very heart of what it means to live in a country where we believe in the founding promise that all people are equal to the law.
Watching the Tube a week ago or so, and all of a sudden, wife goes, "Hey, didn't you interview that guy? Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, I see you on the show." And I'm like, where did this guy, how did he get on this? Not bad here. Obviously, Alexia doesn't hurt, but how did that actually come out to be?
Well, Richard, are we making a little news here? Are you a regular Queer Eye watcher?
I am, and I am proud to say it. So my only point is, I'm watching the Fab Five, whatever, and all of a sudden I see you pop up, and I'm like, what's a politician doing on this show? I'm trying to run away from these guys when I'm turning on the Tube, and I can't get away from you even on that show.
Well, look, they asked me to be on the show to speak with the young man's parents who were involved in that episode, and to present some P-Flag bracelets to them, which I was happy to do. I've actually been friends with the stars of the show for a number of years, and we did it some time ago, so we actually had forgotten about it, and so we were as surprised as everybody when it popped up.
The folks I know that cover this, they all say, this guy, he's got some interesting things to say, and he's running an interesting campaign. I'm just curious, take yourself out of the mix for a second. The challenges, and you know the way politics works, you worked in the West Wing for a long time. Have you been surprised about the party machines and about the challenges to not only get the message out, but to deal with the machine as it's currently constructed, and to try and get through so much of the BS, frankly, that you have to go through to get elected?
Well, let me just be really, really candid with you. Not at all. I mean, I think that this race has been remarkably stable. And one of the things I've heard, go on in this race is some of the other candidates complaining about the fact that, Andrew Cuomo was using the inside machinery and maybe he was doing this and that at the convention. Look, I think people ought to grow up. I think that this is a contact sport. Politics is a rough game, and when you get in it, you ought to know what's involved. I mean, we had some fun recently saying, look, everybody should get tough or go home. This is New York, and if you're not tough enough to handle the rough politics, well, how are you going to take on online predators that are trying to get our kids, or the crooks on Wall Street, or, for that matter, beat the Republican nominee? I mean, this is a tough game, and I think that if you're going to be in it, you ought to know what you're getting into. Now, look, that doesn't mean I think everything's the way it should be, and I'd sure love to see the process a little more open for new people. But let me tell you what, you won't hear me complaining about that in this race. You won't hear me complaining about getting on the ballot. We've done it under the rules the hard way, and we're proud of that. And when people see Sean Patrick Maloney on this ballot, they'll know I've earned that spot. And I'm willing to, to go over these hurdles because, look, they aren't as hard as what you got to do to run this office. And I think it's good that it's hard. There's a lot of things that are hard in life. It doesn't mean they're unfair. And I think that this process is hard, but it also gives voters a chance to see who you are and what you're made of. And I think that's a good thing. I welcome that comparison.
Well, it will be an interesting summer and fall. Sean, I appreciate the time and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Richard. It's always a pleasure.